I just had some exit meetings with some players, so I have to do it after you guys. So I'm in exit meeting mode right now. So this is what you guys have to approve on. Thomas, no, I'm just kidding. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, exactly. Are you staying in Vancouver? I know. I'm kidding.
All right.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Rick, you talked about having some exit meetings here. What is the tone and the type of conversations that you're having with players here as you head into the offseason?
Yeah, from my experience, they're 15 minutes. Like, so you're not gonna. It's more of a follow-up. You know what? From my experience, you want to really get to the chase right away because you have a relationship with players. You see them all the time, but it's more of a follow-up. But there is stuff how to improve, what went well, what didn't. Their suggestions, things like that. So you try to cram it in, but these are just for other conversations down the road, for sure.
It was different this year because there were a few weeks leading up to the season ending, so I'm sure you had some time to reflect. But now that it's finished, how do you look back on this year, and what do you think you take away from it as a coach, and what did you learn?
For me personally, from trying to take a breath from it, you look at it. Obviously, it's not the season you want. You hear different words. Oh, what a disaster, and things like that. And then you look. Well, only 2, 3, whatever points from the playoff spot, but that doesn't curtail the. That we didn't make the playoffs. So we have to look at. Everybody's got to look at each other. What could have been different, and that's for a longer conversations, and a deep dive, like I said to you guys a while ago. But yeah, it's been a hard year. It's been a hard year, but it's also been a year where you can improve by learning these lessons, the adversity. We've talked about that too. So including myself, being better in certain situations. I don't like to play the game what if hindsight, but there is some situations that happen. If I did something different, what would have happened better? You have to look at yourself as a coach and think of those things for sure.
Rick, is it a different dynamic at all conducting exit interviews when your future is a little unclear at this point? And you said the other night that it would be a few days, and I know that you'll negotiate and talk with Jim and Patrick, but just on a surface level, do you want to be back here?
Well, I mean, of course you want to be back here, but there's a process you have to go through, right? I haven't really, all year I haven't breathed. I did, during the time off, I was at Four Nations. You're trying to get this team to the playoffs, dealing with all that stuff. So I haven't really thought of myself. I know people don't believe that. It's not, but sure, at nighttime you think, hey, what am I going to do? You think of those thoughts, but I do have to take a breath and go through. I think out of respect, both sides, you have to go through the process. You have to, and I understand. I know the next question would be, well, how much time do you need? Like, I'm not an idiot. Like, I can't sit on a couch and it's not. I'll decide when I decide. I mean, obviously there's a time frame, but right now for me, I mean, there's a process I got to go through with Jim and Patrick, and that's really where it's at.
And is your season over, or with your role at Four Nations, have you been approached by Hockey Canada to coach at the Worlds?
Yeah, I have, but to be honest with you, my thinking is, it's a hell of an honor to represent Canada. I'm a Canada guy, with hockey. It's been a long year. I don't know if I'm going to give them the best version of me, so I think it's better I just sit in the sidelines. And it's a tough one, but that's how I feel.
Rick, you mentioned when asked about your status after Game 82, the idea of a checklist or some of the considerations. I'm sure there's stuff you'll keep to yourself, but are you able to give us and fans just a sense of sort of some of the ground that you want to cover?
I think it's obviously with Jim and Patrick, and with management. Talking to certain players, I think it's any coach has to go through a process of that. Take a look at myself. Like I said to you guys, like the best version of myself too. That's important. So yeah, you're just. I don't know if that's what's the word? I'm not trying to be a Switzerland answer. I'm just trying to give you that's in my process. The process of it. I have to go through those things. those checklist things, for sure. Yeah.
Entering this season, with DeBrusque and
Yeah.
Sprong, Heinen, all the wings that were brought in, and what we saw at training camp, you did want to be more of an attacking team or sort of evolve in that direction. As you think about this season and sort of how your team played toward the end, how you had to play, where did that sort of vision kind of lose its way, like as you had to compromise and fill in around injuries? How do you reflect on sort of that experiment over the course of the season?
Well, I think our D took a hit there for stretches early on. We missed on a couple of players. Take responsibility. I have to take responsibility too. A couple of guys didn't pan out. A little bit of injuries on the D. Then obviously going forward, with Millsy and Petey. Petey's had obviously had a subpar year. Millsy got traded. Those things kind of hampered a little bit. And then sometimes you as a coach have to strategize, or as coaching staff, of how you going to stay in games. So that was part of the tweaking or the change sometimes. But that's not an excuse, though. That doesn't mean, I don't know what our numbers are. We're last in shots and all that stuff. In the offense, we're 21st. These aren't excuses. I got to look at a different way to generate more offense. But those keys did hamper some of our thought process, for sure.
Hey, Rick.
Hey.
Elias Pettersson,
Yeah.
the center, not the D-man. From the outset of the season, there was kind of a reluctance on his part to do what he does best. When he's at his best, he plays on instinct, but he never seemed to gain that traction. What's your message to him, or was, in your exit meeting, and what do you need to see from him, or what can he do to get back to at least a level where can be a number one center?
Yeah.
He isn't right now.
Yeah, it's and that's a good question. Like, I think people understand, like, Elias wants to be a great player, right? And we're here to try to help him to become that great player. So obviously there's some things that I got to be careful what I say, because you guys hang on. If I say reprogram, you guys take it to a different level. No, I just think I think he'll tell you this, that his preparation has to get better. There's no secret. If you want to be a great player, you have to prepare. Almost an obsessive type of preparation. And I think he got behind the 8 ball early. Then the expectations come, and then there's a little bit of struggle with the team, and he could never gain traction, right? He has to. We've talked about that. Move his feet, shoot the puck, change angles. And me, I'm an honest guy. He's got to practice better. You have to practice better. And I think those things that he's learning, and do I think he will do those things? I do. I really do. Like, I think I can bank on him taking this information, going away for 4 months, and make sure that he has a plan. And the plan has to change. I'm not sure he can train the same way, or, the team. I don't know who he's trained. I do kind of know, but I don't. To be honest with you, that's got to change.
Well, that's my follow-up. You can't force him to train how he trains. And then we talked last week about, USA Hockey and the Quinn Hughes gang and the influence, how much Quinn has improved his shot, his strength. A lot of what Elias has to do is strength-related. So how much influence do you think you can have in that regard?
Well, I think, I think he listens. He takes some of my information, but he's also got teammates too that he's got to inspire too, that are doing stuff too. Tyler Myers, he trains really hard. He had a great year for us. Quinn Hughes, what are they doing? Like, I think the inspiration of those guys can help him. Kiefer Sherwood, shooting 1 million pucks this summer, has a career high because of those little things. I think, can he use his teammates as inspiration?
Rick, you've talked so much about the adversity that you faced this year and how adversity can make people better.
Yeah.
What has the adversity you faced as a coach done for you?
That's a good question. I think you have to look at yourself at certain times. Am I too hard on the team? Am I not hard on the team? Can I free up certain things? Can you think outside the box on different practice styles? So when adversity hits, you got to be able to look at yourself in those things. You can't be real strict. No, this is the way it's got to be, and be like, I think when adversity hits, right? Sometimes people are very stubborn. I'm not changing, so I think it's important that you during adversity you have to change a little bit. A lot of meetings this year. I've had more meetings in my life, and that's one of the things I'm usually good at, the communication part. But I always look at myself, was there a meeting I could have did something different to help the situation? That's something sometimes I struggle with because, could I have done something different? Maybe the light bulb will hit this summer, oh, I should have done this. And with our staff too, dealing with some of the stuff that we dealt with.
And in terms of staff, I guess so
Yeah.
much of it is dependent on what happens with your future. But is there anyone that you know for sure is not or is coming back next year?
No, I don't have those answers, but I'll try to be honest with you guys. I think I got to look at the staff, maybe look at a different guy coming in. That's a possibility. Not quite sure the part-time thing works all the time. Got to look at that. I know it's a suggestion about a power play coach. Yogi's a power play coach. I thought he did a really good job. I don't know what we were 12th or 13th, 14th. It's not bad for what has hit the team, but I know the power play is a big thing around here. I'm not quite sure it's something to do with, and I'm not letting myself off the hook because obviously I'm in charge of things. But I think that the messaging might have to be a little different, and maybe the coaching a little bit. The concepts. I think the concepts are good. It's just I don't want to say the buy-in, but it has to be better. There's times when it's a 2-2 game, third period, and we have a power play, and that power play looks awful. Like that, I bring it back to Game 7 against Edmonton, 4-minute power play. I don't think we got a shot. That has to change, and that's dealing with pressure and adversity. So we have to think of a way how we can deal with that better, and that falls on me for sure.
Ian, Patrick, and then Farhan.
Hey, Rick, over here.
Yeah.
You said after the last game that, the motto, embrace the hard.
What is, sorry? Which, sorry.
Embrace the hard.
Oh, yeah.
And you said you're not sure if you did. So what do you want to see from your team to embrace the hard, to be ready for that?
Yeah. I'm not sure, when I reflect on it, I didn't mind it. I didn't think our training camp was as good as the year before. Now, did we embrace the hard there? Could I have been I kind of kicked myself. Could I have been a little bit harder after training camp? That's something I got to look at myself going into, next year for training camp. Times when, it's going to be hard in the game, and we kind of I don't want to say took the soft route. We didn't go the hard route to lock a game down. Those are the things. Yeah, I don't think we got an A+ on embracing the hard. Is that what you're asking? And that includes myself. I include myself with the players.
And you told us a few minutes ago that Elias would tell us that he needs to train better. Has he told you that? How do you know that he understands he has to have a better
I've talked to him all year about certain stuff, and I know the next question, well, how come he hasn't listened yet? I think he has listened in certain parts. I just don't know, I think he's evolving as a person and as a player to that stature he wants to be. Hopefully he's going to evolve even more. There's a lot of expectations on him. There's a lot of pressure on him. And to deal with pressure, you got to, you ask the best players in the world, they prepare every day mentally and stuff, and I think he's trying to evolve to that level. Is he there yet? No. Are we here to help him? Absolutely. Is his teammates here to help him? Absolutely. But I told Elias, and and I'm going to be quite frank with you guys. I said, we got to meet at the 50-yard line. I'm here, but I'm not going to go to the 75-yard line and make you just walk 25 yards. You got to meet us halfway, and he knows that, and we'll see where it goes.
We've known for a while that Petey and JT were not tight.
But to see it blow up the way it clearly did, I don't imagine anybody could have thought that would happen. But looking back, was there a way that could have gone differently?
Yeah, and this is obviously a really hard question because I'm a JT Miller fan, and Petey. They're both great hockey players. JT played a lot of great hockey for me. Obviously, listen. You guys know that there was some stuff there before even I got here. What level I don't know. I know that obviously we had a really good year the year before, and they had really good years. So you never think it's gonna the smoldering's gonna turn up. Did it get uncomfortable? Yeah. A lot of meetings, a lot of things. Could have something been different? I hear people on the sidelines. If I was coaching or if I was on podcasts, they got to go to dinner and they got to fight it out. You don't think we've tried all that stuff? It just didn't work out. There's no. And I know everybody's looking for a bad guy. I don't know if there's a bad guy in the thing. It just didn't work out. And at that point, it had to be resolved. Like Jim said, and that's what happened. It's unfortunate because would I not want JT Miller in my lineup? 100%. But at that time, it just couldn't work.
And obviously losing him,
yeah,
you can't replace him exactly. But going forward, what is your recommendation to your bosses in terms of what you guys need to look for this summer in terms of setting your lineup for next year?
Well, you have boxes, right? And whatever the cap space is and whatever you have in the system, and you try to fill the boxes. Obviously, one of the boxes, listen, you can be competitive, but the center position is vital in the NHL to go anywhere. And that's what we got to strengthen. Now, whether it's through trades, free agency, or drafts, or whatever it is, that's what's got to be done. And, I'm not a GM. And that's what, Patrick's, I have an unreal relationship with Patrick. I think he's done a hell of a job trying to get me players. Unfortunately, it just, it's tough to, you just can't go off the street and make them, you got to find them. It's going to be tough. Can you do it by committee? Can you do it by really good defense, great goaltending, and manufacture goals? Yeah, but if there's a dynamic guy out there, let us know.
Rick, there's there's certainly a lot of feeling from the outside that Elias Pettersson might not be a Rick Tocchet type of player.
Yeah.
And you've talked about the areas of growth that you need to see in him to evolve and meet you at the 50-yard line. He's 6 years into his career. He's not necessarily a kid anymore.
Right.
Can you win with Elias Pettersson as a centerpiece?
Yeah, I do, because I think there's something there. I don't know that I just, I balk at he's not my type of player. I've coached all different types. I think today's game, you have to play fast. You got to think fast. All the best players are that. That doesn't mean you have to be a speedster, but I think you have to think that way. And, if that's a riff because Petey thinks he got to play the game slow and he doesn't want to move his feet.
Maybe more from a character standpoint.
Yeah. Well, character standpoint? Yeah. Oh, he's a great kid. Like, we have a lot of, I have a lot of time for him. Whether he's never told me he disagrees with my thought process. I wish he did, because maybe that would help. But, he's a shy kid. He's a shy kid. And I think that, he's got a letter on his chest, that's for a reason. So, I'd like to see him take that role a little bit farther. Now, I don't think he thinks I'm harsh because of that, but I want him to be a leader on this team and have a voice. But you also have to make sure that you portray that to your teammates and on the ice. And I think he has it in him, and he's going to need some help, and he's going to have to take a deep dive in himself too.
The core of this team, when you came here, looked a lot different then than it does now, especially when you lose a player like JT. He's a foundational piece. It changes what you look like down the middle. The next key piece is Quinn. And at the end of next season, he's going to have to make a decision, right? Or, he could wait longer, but he could extend at that point. Yeah. As you go through your process, how important is it to you that you feel really confident that you might have him long term?
Yeah. It's a good question, because I'm very lucky to have a guy. Like, he's one of the best players in the league. There's a 50-game stretch. He might arguably be there, that 50 games there. you could have put him as the number one guy or two or 1A or 2B, C or whatever. He was playing terrific hockey for us. And there's a bit of runway before he has to make any decisions. But one thing's a constant with him. I mean, we had lunch the other day, and it's like, I know he's obsessed about how he's going to improve his game, how he can get this team back in the playoffs, how he can become a better leader, and how he can deal with things. But that's evolving. But there's some runway there. And he has the, listen, a guy like him, he has the, he should sit back and kind of analyze things. But I know one thing, the short-term thing for him is how he's going to do this summer. I mean, he's already got thinking about his training. Like, this is the guy you want on your team, right? I got this guy doing it. He's got a new guy training this. He's going to be doing this. He's going to have a couple of his teammates train with him in his elite group of guys in training. That's what a leader does, and that's what he's thinking about. I'm not sure he's thinking about his contract or what's going on down the road because there is some runway, and you got to respect a kid for that.